welcome and hello to the GLGA members and others that have joined. Um, as you mentioned, my name is Sean Galloway. I've been with Sifted here a number of years and have been in the industry well over a decade now. And like I've said, or in my bio that went out, I've been on kind of both sides of the table, so to speak, but where I sit right now is obviously in the role of supporting shippers through Sifted. Want to obviously take this time to share with you, some of the insights that we're seeing in the industry right now, but more specifically and very timely, we'll be spending a lot of time talking about the rate changes and increases that both carriers have now announced for next year. But I promise it's not going to all be bad news, right? It's what are best in class shippers doing to manage their parcel shipping and not feel that they're just at the whims of the increases and changes from the carriers or just resorting to increasing costs to their customers, right, to subsidize the increase in shipping. So all that is to say, the topic of this webinar here, this Lunch and Learn, is saving money on parcel shipping. So if you're here, I imagine that you might ship LTL, you might ship, other lanes, but you do some parcel shipping and you spend your business's money to ship those packages. And if you could continue to ship them but spend less money, that would be preferable, right? So, like I said, and I guess if that's not the case, maybe you just wanted the free lunch. That's okay too. Um, so, with that, Sifted, we're partnered with GLGA, and we have a couple members that are clients of ours. But if I wanted to just do a high-level intro of what Sifted does, we're aggregating over $22 billion in parcel spend annually. So we are very much tapped in, right, finger on the pulse in terms of what the carriers are doing in terms of, say, their on-time performance, what the carriers are doing in terms of, right, their pricing strategies, where they, like I said, making changes, adding increases, and then also what new carriers are entering the marketplace. Since COVID, since 2020, you now have carriers other than FedEx and UPS that are delivering to over 90% of the US population. So regional carriers, and then even Amazon has, and they've been teasing this for a while, but has really taken their first genuine steps into this space. And it's obviously something that FedEx and UPS are watching and our customers are watching. So, our data analytics is there to provide our clients the best insight and feedback in terms of what not only is happening with their data, but what we're seeing in the marketplace. Now, before I move on, these calls definitely go best when they are collaborative. So if you have questions, feel free to speak up, or you can drop them in the chat. Joe is going to be monitoring the chat. And like I said, I'm happy to address any questions or topics that you want. We will have a Q&A session at the end. I'm going to leave time for that. But again, don't hesitate if you need clarification on a certain discussion point or you have questions. All right, perfect. Thanks. All right, with that, like I said, it's very timely. Both FedEx and UPS had announced their general rate increase for 2024 as 5.9%. But UPS in particular had not rolled out the specifics of what those changes and increases were going to be until this past weekend. So as of Monday, and I have it pulled up on another tab, right, you can go to their website and they have now published, right, the base rate changes for the contiguous US, the accessorials What are they going to be? What new surcharges have they potentially invented? And then also what existing surcharges are going to see changes or increases? Obviously, all their air and express um, rates and accessorials. And then the other common one too is what are the new zip codes where delivery area surcharge and things like that are going to be applicable. Um, and why that is important to actually go in and maybe not take the headline, right, of 5.9% is that that number is just the average increase. So if you budget and forecast for 5.9% as a shipper, it is extremely likely that your forecast will be off because some things are going to increase 3%, some things are going to increase 13%. Um, and so when a shipper operates on the assumption that they happen to be the generic shipping profile that the carrier used to come up with 5.9%, I said they are going to be off the mark, right? So um, when the shipper, or sorry, when the carrier announces changes and increases, like I said, those that are really interested in one, not just being able to budget and forecast correctly, which is important, but to actually begin to strategize of, is there anything we can do to mitigate or avoid some of these increases, right? That affects profitability, affects margin, or affects customer experience. Um, what is our effective increase going to be, and where in our shipping profile are we going to be impacted the most, right? Um, so as a bit of data and relevant feedback, last year the carriers announced 6.9%, so it was higher, the announced average increase. But for Sifted, if we looked across 7,000 UPS and FedEx shippers, the average effective increase, right, for the data that we were analyzing and for our shippers was over 7.5%, right? It was close to a full point higher. And some people, I think the highest I saw was about 27%. And then some people were under, right? They were maybe 4%. But the main takeaway, and again, we have the largest data lake of carrier rate data in North America. The true story for most shippers was that if they budgeted for 6.9%, they were going to be under forecasting the money needed, right, for their shipping costs. One thing in a couple of these other you know headlines that are worth mentioning, because we have seen a significant shift in 2023 as we move into 2024. Really, the story has been for the past few years, the carriers are over capacity, which means they were overconfident. It was really tough to maybe get them to be amenable or flexible on pricing, right? They were able to make and announce increases. 6.9% was a historical high, right? UPS even said, we're focused on quality and not quantity. And so some shippers were experiencing that, they couldn't even get a rep to pick up the phone if they had quote unquote ugly freight. But what we saw happen as well during COVID was, with all this overcapacity, right, and this huge surge of volume, was a lot of investment and a lot of growth in the regional carrier space. You had on-track and LaserShip merge, which now for people in the Great Lakes region doesn't mean a whole lot. But again, they're doing that full U, through Texas, East Coast, West Coast. So those are two East Coast and West Coast regional shippers, where again, they're now able to service close to 90% of the UPS population, or US population. And that's, a separate regional carrier. So they started uh, pulling volume away from UPS and FedEx in particular, on the coast, and larger shippers that were getting hit with actual volume caps from the carriers during peak season. They were forced into a diversified model. So, small and medium-sized shippers began to benefit from the fact that large enterprise shippers with a lot of volume were forced to diversify, and then found that, right, they could actually achieve it. It was becoming more cost effective, so they were shedding more volume. And then also what starts to happen, you have, a little bit of a global recession, economy goes down, volume starts falling. And so now all of a sudden, the main carriers, FedEx and UPS, are losing volume at both ends, so to speak. The pool of volume is getting less, and now there's also more fish in the pond, so to speak. So we've seen this massive correction in the past 6 months, to where now the carriers are again being very aggressive in trying to win back volume. Carol Tomei had a UPS on the Q3 earnings call, was very almost disturbingly transparent, I'm sure, to the shareholders, in showing the reduction in their overall volume, millions of packages a day. So again, the same person that stood and proudly said quality over quantity is now saying that we've got to aggressively go after and secure volume, especially since you'll see the other headline here. You have a lot of labor disruption then internally with both UPS and FedEx. UPS, the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien got most of the headlines, right? And they wrote a big check, right? A $30 billion investment in technology and payments, and increased salary for the Teamsters. And what we saw there is, they're not going to have the shareholders subsidize that, right? They became very aggressive in winning back some of the volume, and like I said, answering those phone calls and emails that they maybe hadn't before in terms of bidding on volume, because really their play needed to be get the volume back in now, and then in 2024 we can start to make changes and increases to subsidize this investment that we've had to make. FedEx, I think, kind of caught them by surprise by announcing their 2024 rates early, and announcing under what they did in 2022 for 2023. Very much, this might hurt us, but it's going to hurt you more because of the position you're in, and like I said, the $30 billion investment you just had to make. So UPS quickly announced that they would be 5.9% as well. But we've kind of joked that the past month or so, because FedEx also released their full details right away, UPS did not. And so they were probably furiously sweating, pulling all-nighters, trying to figure out how can we adjust the pricing framework that we're not completely losing our shirt, but that it's also still, a 5.9% average increase. How can we justify the math? So want to spend some time, obviously, around, okay, now that the carrier has shown their hand, so to speak, for how they're going to price shippers for 2024, what do we do? Because again, best-in-class shippers and organizations that are trying to leverage that information, you're planning for next year, this year. If you're responding and well, really not responding, if you're reacting once you see those increases hit your invoices, right, in 2024, you're behind the curve, right, a little bit. You're chasing the pain instead of getting in front of it. So when you have the opportunity, and like I said, I think we can give a thank you to FedEx a bit on this one, that they announced early. We have runway, right, to collaborate with shippers to find out what is the best strategy, or at the very least, right, table stakes is, well, let's budget and forecast accurately, know how you're going to be impacted, so you can, if you can't do anything about it, you can at least find maybe other areas in the business to absorb those increases, or what's coming, right? I'm going to move on to the next slide, but if there's any, like I said, questions, comments about that, about the GRI, which is again the general rate increase. They announce it every year, but since COVID, I guess I'd be remiss to mention they've announced other increases this year. They're at a clip of making 2 to 3 changes a year now, and increases to their pricing. Right, we're entering in demand pricing right now, but the GRI is the big one and gets the most attention. All right. So, what does that mean? And, John, you said Sifted was a data analytics company and, talking to 7,000 clients. Um, like, what does that actually mean you all do? And what actions are they taking? What are they leveraging? So, um, again, there's a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of solutions that are presented in terms of addressing shipping. And don't get me wrong, a good many of them work in terms of you have, warehouse management systems, ERP, um, you have shopping cart abandonment tools, to help you identify those things. You have front end shipping solutions, making sure you're choosing the right carrier, the right service type, depending on where it's going. Um, but specifically, what we look at and what we're going to be talking about today is the data that sits at the very end of your shipping and supply chain process. And that is your carrier invoice data, right? So again, a front-end shipping solution is saying, based on your contracted rates with your carriers, this is how you should ship it. But oftentimes, we knew growing out of a shipper ourselves, and working with our clients, that there's oftentimes a gap between what a shipper expects to pay, right, based on those tools, that technology, or their pricing agreement, and then what they end up getting billed, right, what they write the check for. So what is our actual landed cost? Was there some accessorial that was added on later, right? The carriers have carryover charges, where if you're to calculate the actual landed cost to ship a product, or to ship a replacement part, whatever it would be, you oftentimes need to bridge 2 to 3 invoices to actually roll up and understand what your landed cost is. So really, the data is about analyzing and understanding what are we actually being billed, what is our true effective cost and our shipping profile, and how it shakes out, once we're going through that pricing framework as we ship packages. And the reason why rolling up that data and having a clear line of sight on it is important is then it removes ambiguity, right? It makes sure that you're not, if you're trying to reduce costs and you feel like the costs just keep going up, it's really impacting margin. You don't want to be frustrated at your carrier rep. One, they're not the ones that determine pricing, right? And then two, they want to keep and earn your business, and they're, for a lot of our clients, they're the most important partner that they have, right? They sit between them and their customer. And so much of their customer experience, right, comes down to shipping. So again, that's an important relationship. You don't want to disrupt it. You don't want to make it adversarial. And we believe that every relationship is improved when you remove ambiguity, right? So analytics has 3 core pillars. There's descriptive analytics, which is just what happened. So very fundamentally, how much did we ship? What was our cost? What's our average cost per package when we ship? How much of that cost is going to surcharges, right? Things like that. And how many of those surcharges or costs were avoidable? Were they an address correction? Was it a chargeback? Was it an oversized fee? And was it appropriate, right? Or do we have a scale that's off in the warehouse or something like that, right? So just need to know, fundamentally, have a clear line of sight. If anyone were to come in and ask you, hey, what's your year-to-date spend with the carrier? You have the confidence to answer that question, right, in a click of a button, or have it right in front of you. Then you have the diagnostic analytics, right, which is, okay, let's go through that data, the what happened, and see where was margin at risk, right? Again, where are those avoidable charges? Where could we have done something better? We shipped a next day air to a zone 2, or actually a customer fat fingered their zip code when they gave it to us. It's off by 1 digit, and we keep on shipping to that supplier, that customer, and it turns out we're eating an address correction surcharge every time we do it. So we need a tool that can help ensure that we're not spending resources trying to find problems. We want to spend, right, the energy just fixing the problems. Combing through a 40-page, right, invoice from the carrier each week, trying to find problems isn't value added work and is going to bleed out the ROI in that exercise pretty quickly. Um, the last type of analytics is predictive analytics. And this is where you get into the more rarefied air of the capabilities of a lot of shippers, which is, okay, we've identified some opportunities to be better, right? We've identified that our effective increase for the 2024 UPS GRI is actually going to be 7.5%. What do we do? So predictive analytics is, let's model out some scenarios in a sandbox environment. These packages, right? So the carriers not that long ago reduced additional handling from 70 to 50 pounds, a 20-pound weight reduction. And we had a lot of clients, right, that let's say a third of their shipments had an average weight, actual weight, manifest weight of 55 pounds. No reason to negotiate an additional handling surcharge, right, on their contract, no discount there because they're not hitting that 70-pound mark. Well, come January 1 of that year, all of a sudden they're going to be hit with an extra $23 just in a surcharge alone, right, for additional handling. So again, what can we do? We've talked about we don't want to raise costs to our customers anymore. Can we negotiate an additional handling surcharge discount? Yes, probably. So that's one area. Also, let's actually look at your data in your packages. It turns out for some of our clients, one was a customer that shipped receipt paper. Well, we can divide those shipments, that's all that receipt paper, and it makes it be 55 some odd pounds. Well, when those orders come in, we'll just ship that as two separate shipments, 26 pounds, or I shouldn't do math in public, right, per shipment. Because what's better than getting a discount on a surcharge is just avoiding it altogether. And we can model that scenario. What would your cost be to ship that as two separate shipments versus one big heavy shipment that's getting a discount, right? And that's where, again, you don't have to test it. You don't have to wait till you get the bill. You have a tool and a solution that can help you actually understand the impact of what's going to work, what's not going to work. And then the last piece is you take these three things together and you execute, right? And then you can look back and you ask again, what happened, what's happening? Are we still on target? Or guess what? We acquired a new branch or a new company. Our shipping profile is changing, or the carriers have made changes and increases again. Let's go through, let's refine this cycle again. It's always on, it's always monitoring. This isn't we signed a 3-year contract, so I guess we'll sit down with our rep maybe once a year, and we'll do it by the calendar. And that's what dictates when we look at our costs and our pricing. No, the industry now, especially since COVID, is changing rapidly. This is something that needs to be, dictated by, like I said, your specific data and how it fits into the carrier pricing framework and operations. All right, no chat. So everyone's either eating happily or they're all asleep. They're in a lunch coma because I've put them to sleep. So building off of, right, the invoice is the truth. It's what, like I said, at the end of the day, you're writing the check for as a client. You want to be able to see and understand exactly, again, how much are we shipping? How are we trending too? Our average cost per package for ground residential, it's increased by what percent if we were to look at this same time last year, right? Having those data points and inflection points really help you understand, right, and get your bearings. And then the other really compelling information around this too is getting a broader view into the industry, right? So, hey, we can see that the on-time performance for UPS or FedEx when we're shipping things ground is 88% or 92%. Is that good? Is that bad? Are we at the average? Are we below average? Being able to see where you sit in that broader context, and even at in your industry vertical, right? What is the customer experience? What is the carrier's performance for us when we're delivering our packages? And how does that stack up against the industry? And then the same thing with the pricing, looking at here, having the data and understanding, oh, okay, our ground commercial, our ground residential has gone up 5%. That's tough. But wait, look, in the industry, it's actually more like 8%. So we're actually trending really well. We're at or over market on a lot of the negotiable components of the pricing agreement because, again, we have that feedback from Sifted, knowing, like I said, where is the industry at right now, and for how we ship, are we focused on the things we need to be focused on when it comes to what's driving costs? So another slide that I think that highlights that, right, is the accessorials and the surcharges. I mean, this is one area, for the GRI. Some large shippers are able to negotiate a GRI cap, but if you read the fine print, and like I said, I have been doing this for a while, I've probably seen hundreds of carrier pricing agreements, FedEx, UPS, regional carriers. The GRI cap has never applied to surcharges. This is the one area where they can really make sure to enhance their profitability, right, and cover those investment costs. So you could get a GRI cap potentially on your base rates if you're able to negotiate those. And it's, hey, 5% cap, 3.5% cap. But again, if you budget then for only experiencing a 3.5 or a 5% increase, if you go off what the cap says in your contract, again, it's going to be inaccurate because you're not going to be protected on the surcharges, which is all of the areas, like I said, that they tend to increase 10% plus or just introduce wholesale, right, new fees and surcharges. So having a clear line of sight on what surcharges are we triggering. Let's rank order them. What do we see we get hit with the most? Is that what we expected? And then what are we spending the most on? It's not always a one-to-one relationship, right? So on this one, you can see, address corrections 400 times, $6,000, a returns fee over 2,000 times, spending less money on that. And look, they made sure to get, because they think, oh yeah, we do a lot of returns. Let's get a 45% discount on that. That's appropriate. And also Sifted lets us know that's 90th percentile for statistically similar shippers. So if we look at shippers that are similar to us, 45% is in the 90th percentile of, what is achievable in the market right now. So that's a really good discount. But look, our eye is off the ball. We haven't negotiated anything on address corrections, and that's actually, higher up the list in terms of where we're spending money with the carriers. So again, going back to, let's understand the impact of how these surcharges are going to be increasing and changing. They've gone up. Overall, surcharge expense has gone up over 30% since the pandemic. So this is a key area I'd encourage, right, everyone to understand. What are our top 10 surcharges? Do we talk about those with our rep? Do we have discounts in place? And then also dig in a layer deeper for ones like additional handling. It's not just what is our discount for additional handling. Do you know what types of additional handling? Because they've added conditions. There's length plus girth, there's weight. Do we have discounts on all of those sub-conditions of additional handlings? And again, remove ambiguity from that conversation. Really what we're doing and what we're encouraging shippers to do is have a technology and a team that can help you understand your costs and your data at a granular level, because your rep, right, again, who I am an advocate for them because, like I said, they're such an important business partner, but they don't have the time, right? And they honestly don't have the capabilities to look at how your costs are being impacted in this level of detail, right? They've got other meetings that day, right? And again, it's maybe the 2 or even 3 layers of pricing that sits behind them, which is looking at the pricing. And again, even they're looking at, okay, yeah, what do they ship? How much? All right, these are the top service types, top 5 surcharges. This is a comfortable margin for us. And then for a lot of our clients, and again, us being born out of a shipper, it doesn't really feel like a negotiation because we might move the needle on a couple things, but we really don't know why we're asking for what we're asking other than we want it to be cheaper. And then maybe we get an extra 10% on a service type or a surcharge, and you feel good about that. But then you kind of realize, like, well, if I was just middle of the pack, or maybe I was less than average, like now I'm average. We're running a race in the dark. Like, do I really have good pricing? Of course, the carrier is going to tell me I have good pricing because I mean, let's be candid. What else are they going to say? They're not going to say, hey, Sean, you're right. We give you really C plus rates. That's what you're getting. So you want to be able to validate and understand that, yes, I am getting, very likely you are getting good rates in certain areas. But there's 100 plus negotiable components on a contract, and it's more about understanding how your shipping characteristics, your profile fits within a pricing agreement. And again, coming back to GRI, how it's going to fit into 2024's pricing agreement, and what can you do to start strategizing and planning on it now. Last thing, and then I really want to get to jumping into the platform. We've talked really mainly about cost, understanding cost, but what is the result going to be of this? I mean, there's three core pillars. Obviously, you have cost mitigation in the middle, but speed and efficiency, right? Some of this is you'll now understanding the carriers, their network, their pricing. Second order impact of a lot of this is we're a more efficient shipper, for them. We're avoiding some of these shipping charge correction fees where they're having to rebill us on freight, or these address corrections, things like that. I mean, they're not good for you because it's costing you more. Also, it's not good for the carrier if, again, they ingest something in the commercial network and it turns out it needs to be residential, but your system forgot to tag it as residential, so now they're having to switch it into the residential network, right? That's causing them inefficiencies. So customer experience, the carrier's performance is going to improve. And then, like I said, the last piece, best in class contract and rate pricing. So again, just knowing and having that feedback that, okay, we're aligned. My rep, the carrier, our preferred partner carrier, and how we're shipping, there's alignment there, and there's not a breakdown. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna jump into the platform. I want to show a few things specifically around the GRI. But like I said, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay. So getting into the platform, one, I want to talk about, how does Sifted get this data when they're reviewing it for their clients? How their clients able to see this data, and their Sifted account managers that are working with them, the logistics engineers. How's this platform developed? So it honestly takes 60 seconds, which I know sounds super cheesy and salesy, but I mean, that's just, that is the truth. There's nothing that our clients install or implement into their systems. Clients aren't giving us access to their databases or anything like that. And then there's no data that they need to push to us. FedEx and UPS and like I said, USPS, the regional carriers, all have an online billing portal, right, where you can log in and you can view and download like a PDF of last week's invoice if you wanted. So it's very easy. Our clients do a one-time connection to their FedEx.com and UPS.com accounts. And that way, when they are invoiced each week, sometimes multiple week, depending on the carrier, right? Our system is able to grab that invoice and pull it into the platform. So it's a browser-based tool. So I'll move over here. It's a browser-based tool that is going to be always on. It's accurate and timely data, and our clients are able to access it anywhere that they have an internet connection. So this is right the descriptive analytics that I mentioned. Being able to have a dynamic dashboard and see, okay, year over year, month over month, how are we trending? Or if I wanted to just look at one specific service type, right, it's going to reaggregate all that data. If I had, a preference to see, just inbound, just outbound, third-party shipments. If I have, right, multiple carriers, hey, I just want to see UPS, or even drill down, right? If there's multiple counts, you could just look at a specific account. So go from a 30,000 foot view to a 3-inch view. It's quickly and easily as you wanted to understand, again, what your landed cost is. also be able to see, from a distribution map to perspective, where are our packages going, right? Uh, what is, again, a breakdown of the service types that we're using, but what are the most common zones that we're shipping to? Because as you'll notice, so this is a really important thing to key in on. The past two GRIs, the carriers have pivoted and they have focused again on the surcharges, but not as, introducing new changes and increases, but adding a zone-based component. So again, when they changed additional handling and they reduced it, so they increased the cost of additional handling and then they reduced it from 70 to 50 pounds. Now they've added a third layer to the formula that all shippers need to be aware of. Your additional handling cost, which has now gone up in the past and it's going up again next year, is no longer the same if you ship it to a zone 3 or a zone 6. Surcharges now have, it's much like fuel and others, have an exponential component, right? So your surcharge will be higher depending on how far, right, the carrier is going to have to go to deliver it. How many hubs is it going through? So again, it's a Herculean task for someone to do this manually, or like I said, even your rep, right, to understand how you're going to be impacted when there's just so much complexity to the pricing and what components and variables to a shipment will impact the end landed cost. Like I said, you need a tool in the system that's capable of handling that kind of complexity and giving you a clear line of sight. So here, seeing that, how does the zone, right? What are our most popular zones? How does that impact our average cost per package when it's going to some of these higher zones? And also, could some of that be a discrepancy by weight, right? So all those key variables, right? How far is it going? What service type did we ship it? And how heavy are the packages, right? Seeing the relationship between all of those pieces and starting to understand how they fit together. Now, again, we don't expect everyone to be an expert on some of these things. It's not like we just, it's a very intuitive UI, but it's not throw you the keys and walk away. It's working with your teams who have a lot of experience, who know your business better than us, better than the carrier. And like I said, working together to understand, hey, if we're to tackle 3 or 4 things, let's rank order them. What's going to move the needle the most? Because honestly, it is so complex. There's honestly a lot of opportunities within a shipping profile to maybe drive some more efficiency, better carrier performance, better cost. But you really want to focus on, what's going to be most impactful for that shipper. What do they care about? For some, it is reducing time in transit. We need to build a new distribution center. Our clients, we work with some where they're shipping blood samples, right? Lab equipment, and we do a lot in the healthcare space. So more than cost, it really is about we need the absolute best carrier reliability possible. Okay, that's the approach, that's the framework, that's the thesis we're looking at the data and the carriers through. Others, it is more cost driven, right? Like, hey, our clients have a tolerance for a package maybe getting there half a day later on average than what the industry experiences. And if it means we're going to save 12% on our costs, then let's go with that option. So it's an understanding of what the goals and objectives are, how we're going to measure success, and then that's like I said, what we're going to focus on. Getting to the GRI, right? So this is an example of last year. So now our clients are, I don't want to pull up, actual customer data. This is dummy data. Because again, data security is very important. When we do benchmarking, right, that's an anonymized data lake. We're never going to say, hey, Bob or Barb down the street gets this additional handling discount. You're not able to publish your pricing, right? And that's why we're not a consultant in the sense of like, hey, we're going to sit at the table and negotiate for you. We've done a bunch of these, right? This is very much like a TurboTax or something else like that. This is a technology platform that is meant to take and understand your pricing and how it fits in, like I said, with the carrier pricing based on the industry feedback and data that we're bringing in. The GRI impact analysis tool for our customers. So for instance, when FedEx announced on Monday, they had a dashboard live and a report that they're reviewing with their sifted contacts less than a week later. right? So UPS just announced we already have scraped and ingested those increases and changes. And our clients that ship with UPS will be getting a GRI impact analysis, I imagine, in less than 7 days, unless someone from product, I don't know, maybe it's much more complex and it's going to take longer. And like I said, maybe some from product is going to throw a stapler at my head for saying that and promising that. But I imagine, like I said, our turnaround time is usually less than a week for all of our clients, which is very impressive because, like I said, that's $22 billion in spend that we're effectively running through a simulation engine. So for this client, right, this is a FedEx shipper where we showed last year the announced GRI was 6.9%. And then there's a link where you can go and look at, FedEx's website where they publish that. But our clients, their pricing agreement, right? So they can drag and drop their UPS contract, their FedEx contract into the Sifted platform because the Sifted platform is going to run rate compliance, things like that. Because the average shipper, if you were to look at smack dab middle of the bell curve of, what the average shipper overpays just from getting billed incorrectly on their discounts and, custom DIMs, minimum charge reductions, things like that, it's over 0.5%. So like I said, some more, some less, but like I said, it's almost like the industry or, shippers have just painfully accepted that they're going to overpay one of their vendors because it's just too complex to, to monitor it otherwise. So we have the customer's pricing in here, right? We can say, if nothing changes about your current UPS or FedEx, partner carrier's contract, that agreement you have in place with them, if nothing changes about your discounts, and you were to ship all of the same packages that you did, this previous year, this is what your cost would be. Again, it's not a crystal ball because you're going to probably ship a little bit different in 2024 than you did in 2023. But it's a heck of a lot more accurate than just saying, okay, well, they said 6.9%. So I guess that's what I'm going to update my slide, for our internal review that, hey, parcel shipping is going to cost 6.9% roughly next year. So they'll get a breakdown. These are the service types, right, that experience the greatest increase. Home delivery for this customer is going up almost 9.5%, right? Oversized fee was a massive increase for them. So this is a client that's shipping some more, heavier and are awkward sized um, items. That surcharge for them, their impact is going up over 13%. And again, let's say they had a GRI cap in their contract that capped at a very aggressive 3.5%. They would still be feeling the full impact of that 13% increase, right, on that surcharge. So we break it down. This is how you get to the 9.39%. Your base charges are going up over 7.5%. Your surcharges are actually going up over 12%. And again, we're all about data and being able to model what if scenarios. So again, a dynamic dashboard, they'll be able to see, again, where in our shipping profile are we experiencing the greatest increase? So let's say worst case scenario, there's nothing we can do to mitigate this, either on our contract or operationally, right? Because Sifted's going to go through this and say, hey, maybe if you could ship it this way instead of that way, you'll avoid, right, some of these increases, some of these charges. Let's say there's nothing that we can do. At least now we know, let's not just increase our shipping costs, wholesale across the board. Let's really maybe focus in, kind of like with the scalpel. These are the type of shipments. These are the areas of our shipping profile. These are the products. These are the parts that we're going to be experiencing the most increase when we ship. So those are the areas that are going to basically have to subsidize, the most cost increases. So again, showing home delivery, FedEx was giving themselves a $41,000 raise just because, right? Cost going up. All right, gonna pause again here. I want to make sure, like I said, that it's clear what the intent of this exercise is to do, which is to give our clients the ability to start strategizing. So not only budgeting, but strategizing for next year now, right? And not being 10th in line in February when people are calling their reps and saying, man, hey, shipping's got really expensive. All right, perfect. I have a couple more slides. And then, like I said, I can leave some time for some Q&A. And I hope everyone's enjoying their meal. Um, all right, so I have another important kind of predictive analytics piece, which is a lot of our clients right now are looking at pricing, right? So again, they maybe have a 3-year contract with the carrier, but again, gone are the times kind of pre-pandemic when our clients would, kind of negotiate by the calendar, right? Of when their renewals are, or maybe every January. Um, the industry got a lot more dynamic. The carrier made changes and increases to pricing multiple times a year. And so whenever one side in a cost in a pricing negotiation in a contract changes the formula, right? Changes the goal. Um, the shipper has the ability to revisit pricing. So even if it was 90 days ago, right, that you entered into a pricing agreement, the carrier announces or makes changes and increases, that might directly impact what you just sat down and discussed at the negotiating table and eroded all that progress. You can say, hey, we need to get an addendum in place, or we need to revisit this. Um, and when you get that carrier proposal, again, you're faced with really relying on the carrier. I mean, you can get pretty obviously clever and good in Excel or Power BI. Like I've said, I've worn a lot of hats. I've sat in that position before. I don't doubt that there's people on this call that can, run up a mean pivot table maybe faster than I can. But taking all of your package data and then overlaying that on a carrier proposal and trying to calculate, hey, how much is this actually going to save us? Because I know the rep said, yeah, this is great. This is going to represent, 5% or another, $80,000 off your spend by signing this new agreement. Again, it's not that there's any malfeasance. It's just looking at the data in enough granularity that is that actually what's going to happen? Or are we going to run into things, right? Maybe some things were tweaked to get us that aggressive discount on that surcharge that again is going to erode, kind of like a seashell game, all the progress that was made um, by that other concession. So being able to take a new carrier pricing proposal and just like that GRI impact analysis. So let's say, this is the customer story, or the shipper sees that UPS just announced increases and changes. They run an impact analysis and see that their costs are going to go up 8%, right? Not good, not acceptable. Their boss maybe isn't going to tolerate it. Their customers aren't going to tolerate it. So they get proactive. They have a very responsive rep. They say, hey, we need to, we need to get new pricing in place that takes into account these changes and increases before we actually start experiencing them right at the end of December and early January. Rep is responsive, works on it, goes to his, like I said, regional pricing managers, gets a new proposal and says, hey, this is great. We got, more aggressive on some of those areas that you're going to see the biggest increases. So, this is actually going to keep you at status quo, right? Or maybe it's really great, good news. Not only are you not going to get an increase next year, it's going to cost you less. You're going to end up saving 1.5 points, with this new agreement. Awesome. Do you trust it and you just sign it and you're really happy because maybe they had a slide deck with 2 or 3 slides that, pointed out the progress you're going from this discount to this discount, which means more savings. Duh, this is awesome. Or, do you give it to someone? Do you have a logistics resource or a person that can actually pull some historical reporting and they kind of try to do an apples to apples comparison and come up with a number on what your actual savings are? Both of those things, again, take a lot of time. And at the end of the day, probably don't inspire a lot of confidence because if you're like most people, most shippers, they feel like, we're always just seemingly kept at arm's length when it comes to shipping costs. Like we're really not making any sort of progress, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. Or sometimes 3 steps back the past couple of years. So much again, like the GRI impact analysis, this is going to take that proposal, map it into the sifted tool, hey, you want to take 6 months, 12 months historical data, okay, let's reship those packages against this proposed pricing agreement. And it's going to come and it's going to show me, right? This is for each service type or for each surcharge, so in this one, over 1,100 2-day packages that this customer paid $23,000 for, right? Um, they had, a current effective discount of 41%. This new projected discount is 56%. So what is the actual savings going to be? Going through all that and coming down with down to the decimal point. Again, it's not a crystal ball, but you move with a lot more confidence that, okay, we're making the right decision, whether it's from a competitor's proposal or from our proposal, or so from a different carrier, right? Let's look at the analysis, or if it's just renewing and updating the agreement with the current carrier. So making decisions a lot more quickly and a lot more effectively, because again, it's going to be based off of that landed cost data. All right. I know we got 8 minutes left. Um, I would like to open it up for Q&A. I mean, I guess I would like to mention one last thing, for this Q&A section before I open it up. GLGA members can get a no-cost proof of concept, which is, I showed that data connect form. It takes 60 seconds. I'll have a custom one. It's a secure link just for GLGA members. Like I said, you can take that minute, you can connect your accounts. We'll pull in, all the dashboards that I showed you in the platform. We'll populate those. We can sit down and see where does our diagnostic tool identify opportunities. And because of the timing, UPS announced, FedEx have announced, and so I talked to, like I said, the powers that be, and I'm really excited to say that we will do that GRI impact analysis, which is part of our predictive analytics, right? So worst case scenario, right? Let's say we don't find anything. Your rep is maybe your brother-in-law or something. You get the best rates ever, and your shipping team has never had an address corrected. So you'll get that doctor's health check saying you're doing everything perfect. And then also now as an added benefit, you'll get a forecast. Hey, UPS, FedEx announced 5.9%, but based on your shipping data, right? How should you budget and forecast? And then a breakdown of where. So a really powerful document, right? An analysis to walk away with, even if we don't see any other opportunities. So, like I said, we'll have that turned around, and we could have that published and be talking next week, so that as a shipper, you're able to start having more productive conversations on that GRI for next year. So, all right. With that, yeah, open it up for questions.
Excellent. I just wanted to mention, this is Joe Lyman from Great Lakes Graphics Association. We have two things I want to mention. One is the 10% discount for the members. That is a program that we're running with Sifted, and it is available again for any member in good standing. The second thing is I want to mention that several of our members are utilizing Sifted. Some are saving a tremendous amount of money. Obviously, you have to go through the walkthrough of the analytics, assessing exactly what your current situation is with the parcel shippers. But once you find that out, it's amazing. Again, some people will always say they get the best rate, but what you're doing is using a clearinghouse of information for companies just like you across the United States. And with that, they're able to really be able to zero in on what you should be paying rather than what you're currently paying. So just because you think you're getting the best rate doesn't necessarily mean you are.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate that, and I guess honestly, I shouldn't like be too ashamed or like bury the lead here. The market has really changed. We measure everything, and um, the total realized savings for last year Q3 for the average UPS and FedEx shipper that renegotiated was 14%. Is around 13% for FedEx, and it was about 15% for UPS shippers. Now, I want to be clear, not all sifted shippers renegotiated, right? And I've done an analysis frequently looking at a client, hey, would it be a good opportunity to renegotiate? No, you pretty much got best in class rates. Maybe you'd save like, 6 grand a year, but if you're a $2 million shipper or something like that, they might not want to blow up a contract to go after that, right? They're in a good spot. But for a lot of people, there is an opportunity, and just very transparently, because like I said, I've did this pre-pandemic, and then after the pandemic, there was a while where negotiating was very tough because one, you couldn't leverage a competitive bid because, like I said, we couldn't, and our clients couldn't get UPS to pick up the phone. So it was hard. They weren't being aggressive. It has absolutely changed starting, really spring and summer, and more shippers than ever. We're running more projects than we ever have, and the result measurable savings is north of 10% on average. Like I said, for when a client is improving and updating their pricing. Um, so, like I said, I want to be very clear. If you connect and you say, "Hey, Sean, all right, I'll give you 45 minutes, right? I'll connect my data. You do the run through, and tell me how much you can save me." I'm not going to say that. Yep, I'm going to find. Oh, you shipped with UPS. Okay, we're going to get 15% savings for you, right? We're going to be very transparent about the opportunity because we're carrier agnostic, right? Um, but like I said, there's never been a better time to look at it because if like I said, if there is an opportunity, it's likely pretty substantial. Um, so yeah,
Excellent.
no, thanks for that, Joe.
Well, are there any questions
Yeah,
related?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, so a lot of the visibility and the tools that I saw there were I've seen similar solutions from some of your competitors. I guess my question is this more associated with a one-time exercise tool to kind of do a temperature check, or is this something that uh, can be used for basically a part of the freight audit and pay piece of the business in maintaining the weekly snapshots and all the different buckets that that you very well articulated on what's where the leakage is happening. Is that uh, I've got two different sides of the fence. I'm assuming it could probably work in both ways, but I wanted to kind of understand that a little bit better.
No, great question. So, well, and especially the proof of concept exercise is meant to be a one-time snapshot. And for some of our clients, I just maybe we do at a minimum quarterly business reviews, right, with our clients, and that's more than enough for some. But the tool is very much, I kind of, glossed over this. The sifted score is is the main page, so maybe I shouldn't have glossed over it. That is updating each week or every time you've been invoiced for each. It's like a credit score for each carrier, and it shows you the top 5 components that moved, and especially if there are things like suboptimal service collection, which is selection, which is something that you would want to fix, or on time percentage, which is measuring the carrier, right? The 6 buckets that feed this score are going to be divided by measuring the carrier, like how current and competitive are your rates, and then rate compliance is something that you should be doing every week, right? So that's also feeding the score. Are you billed accurately, right? So we do have audit and pay capabilities, things like that. And we're also measuring that and giving that feedback. And so we're always on, always monitoring. A lot of our clients have end users, multiple users, finance operations that are logging into the platform, every week, sometimes every day. Because the 3 buckets on the right are very operational focused, right? I mean, hey, we're going to find out, are you getting hit with late payment fees? Like, you negotiated that new contract and didn't realize that you're now on, net 14 terms and no longer 21 or something like that. Or DIM, you got a new product, or maybe you hired a new guy or gal in the warehouse that is putting, SD cards in a printer box or something like that. And so you got really inefficient, packaging going on. We're going to catch that right away so that you can fix the problem now and not 3 months from later and say, oh, dang. I can send over, so I'll send over a follow-up, right? Recapping the UPS and FedEx, right? I'll link to their new increases, right? But I can also include, something like this, which shows, this the analytics, what we do, but then our services that are related to them, right? So, like I said, we can help with bill pay or general ledger coding. We can do invoice audit. We can do, help model out, different box sizes if you're making decisions around box sizes. So, yeah, I can include this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And just to kind of expand upon that a bit is our current structure is, we partner with both UPS and FedEx and have agreements with both, but they both EDI feed a competitor of yours where they'll give us the tables and, not in the exact same format that you displayed, but something you know to that end. But then they'll do the freight audit and make sure everything is invoiced correctly. But then they kind of pass off to our 3PL, which basically pays the check on our behalf, and then we just maintain that relationship with our 3PL. I'm assuming something like
Mm.
that would be uh, doable with using your product to compete with our current. I don't even know what you would call yourself. Just the way you take all this invoice data and you kind of break it down into all these different little categories.
Yeah, we're call ourselves logistics intelligence. We do have our capabilities have a lot of overlap. Yeah, yeah, audit and pay providers have been around, long, long, long time. Um, and bill pay, yeah, and things like that. But you don't have to do all of the things. It's a very modular surface or service, right? And I think I even said, like, we might find a lot of things that we can do, and they might overlap with other providers. But if we're to, like, let's do that gap analysis, what are two or three things that there is opportunity and that you're not currently doing, right? Or isn't currently being leveraged and is maybe out of scope for those other providers? Let's partner in that regard. It doesn't need to be right an all or nothing. We have clients that don't own their own pricing, right? They're on Core Trust, which is a FedEx rate reseller, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
they
what we're
don't.
on.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So there you go. Yeah, they get an EDI fee. It's like we can still pull in their data because we can still help them from not, like, running into the invisible furniture, which is the ever-changing landscape of surcharges, right? They can still control their costs a lot of ways. Contract, audit, these are all individual levers that impact carrier cost and reliability. But like I said, there are many levers, and we can align. Like I said, we don't need to displace or interrupt any really current provider that our clients are working with, their current carrier, to help them better understand and identify. Like I said, if there's any other fish worth fishing for in the pond, so to speak.
No, sounds great. And yeah, I'd love a follow up discussion just based off of what our needs are, where I feel like our gaps are, and just any potential improvements we can make in this category.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Chris. Yeah, every shipping profile is unique, even within the same industry, right? I mean, it is the carrier pricing structure is incredibly complex, and so one variable, whether it's weight, it might depend whether you're tripping in one weight band higher or lower than maybe the person down the street who is effectively the same, and that's why, like I said, and especially for GLGA members, offering that proof of concept exercise of, well, let us, the demo data is great, right? And a lot of people get really interested and excited and they say, yep, we want that report. We want that analysis. We're having like I said, a partnership discussion. But for you all, we're willing to pull in your actual data to do a no cost analysis and see and let you actually see the tool and the platform with your data in it, to see if it's worth continuing a discussion and a potential partnership. And as Joe said, we've had multiple members, come in. I mean, I'll mention Tom at LCP, who I believe is on the board. He said multiple times he's more than welcome to be, or more than happy to be a reference. We have saved them a substantial amount of money and headache when it comes to dealing with the carriers, and so he's I think, pretty passionate about what kind of unlocking some of the visibility here can do.
So
to-
that's the interesting part, Sean, is, and again, I don't want to belabor I mean, we're already over, but Tom actually contacted me early on and said, hey, look, we just got put in touch with this company, Sifted. He didn't really go in depth on it, but he said, if it is true what they say they're going to do, we're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so he went through the process. It took a while. He contacted me back and said, you won't believe this. We're saving $700,000 a year in our shipping. And he said, I thought we did the best we could with negotiating. And that's when Sean and I had a conversation about what could be done for GLJ members. Again, it's kind of like that little star at the bottom. Results may vary, but we just had another one of our smaller members, GLJ members, do an assessment, and it was $10,000 that they saved. Now, to an owner, that $10,000 is profit. It goes back into their pocket. So a lot of times, or maybe it's an improvement, maybe it's putting towards a new capital expense or whatever, giving bonuses out, who knows? But the more money that can be saved on products is the money that you could be putting back into your company rather than UPS or FedEx.
Yeah.
So, well, if there's no other questions, I really appreciate everybody's time. And again, Sean, thank you so much for providing lunch. It was very appreciated. And we will get this recording out to everybody here in the next few days. If you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
Thank you.